This is going to be another video in my series of ranking the studio albums, and today I am going to cover the discography of legendary 70s, 80s band Dire Straits. Dire Straits only has 6 albums in their studio album catalog, and it's very difficult to do a ranking because they don't have a single bad album in their catalog. If there was one clear-cut stinker, that would make it a little easier, but for Dire Straits, they don't have a single weak album. There's certainly albums that I like more than others for Dire Straits, but it was really hard to put this list together because every time I would start to rank an album in the top 3, I always felt like I was shortchanging the ones at the bottom. So this was one of the harder lists that I had to put together, and it might surprise a few people, but like you have commented and like I've commented, we all have different tastes depending on where our nostalgia is for a particular album, or what we remember growing up, or what album we were introduced to and what got us to like Dire Straits in the first place. So I'm going to start off with my number 6 album, and that is going to be Communique. Now, it's a great, solid album. For me, I have always just figured this to be my least favorite of the bunch because it's almost like their debut album, an immediate sequel. You could have almost called it Dire Straits Volume 2. There's a lot to like about this album. I like Once Upon a Time in the West. Communique is a great track. I love Lady Writer. That might be my favorite song on the album. Angel of Mercy is fantastic. And the rest of the album, if you like the first album, you're not going to be disappointed with this album. But for me, it was just a little too much more of the same. And fortunately, Dire Straits didn't stick with this formula. As you can see, as I go through the rest of their albums, they were going to incorporate different styles and textures and much more cinematic types of songs in their future work. But Communique is a solid album, just not my favorite. My number 5 pick is going to be the debut, and that might be blasphemy to rank this album that low. Like I say, I love this album. It's not a bad album, just in terms of the other albums in their catalog. It's just got to fall a little bit lower. Obviously, Sultans of Swing was the huge track off this album, the album that broke them in North America and I think around the world. But Down to the Waterline is a great album opener. I've always loved Water of Love, just almost like a slow blues track. Six Blade Knife is another great bluesy, moody rocker. And I love Lions. Lions is another favorite of mine off this track. So, very cool album. A lot to love on here. And one of the few times you got to have that interplay between Mark and his brother, David Knopfler. Number 4, Brothers in Arms. Love this album. The first Dire Straits album that I actually owned. And where I was in this particular point in my life, this album meant a lot to me. Money for Nothing was a big video on MTV. You got Sting doing backing vocals. I love that. So Far Away is such a cool album opener. As much as I like the songs on the first side, I like the tracks on the second side even more. I think Right Across the River is just such a cool, atmospheric track. I love the rhythm, you got the Caribbean drums a little bit. You've got what sounds like some sort of reed instrument throughout the track. Mark Knopfler's guitar is just so perfect throughout that. The Man's Too Strong is just a real powerful rocker. I like that one. Again, it's very moody, starts off very quiet, and then that chorus, it just slams you in the face. And it's not even an electric guitar, it's just a heavily mic'd acoustic guitar in the middle, but it's such a great soundscape. I love that track. One World, I don't know if this was a single, but it should have been. I always love that middle part where they say it's only, that part with the I don't know, that middle part always is the catch for me in that particular song. I love that. Love everything about it. It's got a great riff from Mark Knopfler on there. Just always love that lick. And Brothers in Arms is a great way to close out that album. Again, I can't believe I have to rank it number 4 because I am absolutely in love with this album, but just so many other great albums in Dire Straits' catalog. Number 3, Making Movies. Now, really, this belongs at the top of the list, but I can't because, again, they've got so much great stuff. But what a fantastic album Making Movies is, and what a shift from the first 2 albums. This was their 3rd album. It's got Romeo and Juliet on it. It's got Tunnel of Love. It's got Skate Away, which was a video I remember seeing on MTV where it's just kind of their silhouettes and they're playing as the song's fading out, which is totally cool. Only 6 tracks on this album. Well, is it 7? 7 tracks on this album, which is not a whole lot for a Dire Straits album, but definitely this album is a bona fide classic. They definitely stretched out more. There were more keyboards. There was just more, finding space in the song and taking their time to get there. Just really sweeping arrangements and, Making Movies was an appropriate title because, each of these songs could have been a soundtrack for a feature film, but just love it. It's great. Number 2, and this is one where people are probably going to take me to task the most of on this entire list. I am going to go with their final studio album, On Every Street. And if you're immediately saying, what are you talking about? How could you rank that album so high? I invite you to spend some more time with it because some of my favorite Dire Straits moments are on this album. I love the title track, On Every Street. I love Fade to Black is such a gorgeous blues rocker. I love Calling Elvis, the opening track. It's got a great rhythm to it. I love Planet of New Orleans is a great atmospheric, moody rocker. So many great moments on this album that if you haven't discovered it, or if you maybe need to rediscover it, I definitely encourage you to because I love that album to death. My number 1 pick is the phenomenal Love Over Gold. What a great album. Only 5 songs on here, so with every album, the number of tracks on a Dire Straits album is shrinking, but love this album. There's nothing here that really rocks out hard. I mean, Industrial Disease, but that's got like a real heavy keyboard riff. But Telegraph Road, I actually live outside of Detroit, and Telegraph Road is one of the most heavily traveled boulevards in the entire county of Oakland and Wayne counties. And that is actually the road that inspired this track. So for me, it's got kind of a personal meaning because I've driven up and down Telegraph Road more times than I can count. It really, like, I've driven from home to college along Telegraph Road. I've driven to work on Telegraph Road, all the different jobs that I've had. So, but I just love that track. I love Private Investigations. It's such a moody, slow, brooding track. And it barely rises above a whisper, but that's the great, what I love most about this track. And then Love Over Gold, the title track is fantastic, and It Never Rains. It's almost like kind of it ends things on a little more upbeat note than the rest of the album. Industrial Disease is a great commentary, on sort of the plight of the working man and the indifference of corporations. It's got some real clever rhymes. I love Mark Knopfler's wordplay on that song. But Love Over Gold, fantastic, as good as it ever got for me with Dire Straits, and that is saying something. So love to hear if you agree with my list or if you would have ranked the albums differently. As always, leave a comment, and thank you for watching.